Fantastic. Well, we have a couple of panel discussions today, and our first panel discussion is going to be looking at smart landscapes, what is happening in the realm of AI and BIM and other digital tools that are reshaping the design. This discussion will be an exploration into digital intelligence, from AI to BIM and the emerging smart tech that we're seeing so much today in the construction industry and the landscaping industry. I'm going to lead this panel because I like construction tech, but this was the panel that Chris Fannin was supposed to chair for me. He'd agreed to. So I'm stepping in. I'm sure I'm not going to do as great a job as he would have. And so it's my pleasure to introduce my panel today. Please come and join us on the stage. Manuela de Prada, she is the partner and landscape manager at IDOM. Kerem Cengiz, the managing director of LWKP and Partners. Omar, Othman, the lead architect. He is also the AI emerging tech guy at U+A. And Vasileios Kyrgiotis, he is the design technology lead, public realm at AtkinsRéalis. Guys, please come and join me today. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Why don't we start with just a quick introduction from this end?
Sure. Hello. Can you hear me? Yeah, perfect. Hello, I'm Vasileios Kyrgiotis. I'm the design technology lead for the landscape team at AtkinsRéalis.
Hi, good morning. My name is Kerem Cengiz. I'm the managing director of LWKP and Partners for the Middle East region. I'm an architect, not a landscape architect, and have a passion for technology and how we can integrate that in sensible way into the work we do.
Hi, I'm Omar Othman from U+A, lead architect of AI and emerging tech. I'm also an architect, and I'm passionate towards AI and all the technology that are emerging at the time.
Hello, I am Manuela Casado. I am the landscape manager at IDOM, which is an architecture, infrastructure, and landscape consultancy firm, with an office here in Abu Dhabi, in Riyadh, and in Spain. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you for joining us. You know, the construction industry has moved forward in the last 10 years with the development of some fantastic technology. In that period of time, we've seen BIM become part of the actual, the use from the design through the construction phase, but so many other techs that are sort of hitting the scene, and landscape architecture is a little bit of a specialty, and so I'm sure that there's some special technologies that you're using. So Omar, you're the man without socks today, so you get the first question. You're a very bold man to come on stage without socks. I think that's a pretty cool thing, right? So what sort of technologies are you seeing in your industry today?
Well, since we're mentioning AI and BIM, well, currently there's a lot of new tools that are connecting BIM with AI and parametric modeling. We have now a lot of tools which people are using to connect this new AI tech, especially with parametric modeling and Grasshopper and Rhino, in a way that you can just take it into BIM and utilize it in a way. And if we're speaking about landscape, we're talking about all your planting techniques, your tiling techniques, how your landscape, hardscape, and softscape will react to your built environment and your surrounding and the architecture. So I think there's a lot of shifting now, not just about visualization or image generation in AI, but it's also becoming more into the landscape area, especially about how you do calculations, the planting, how you link structure to it. So I think there's a lot of potential when it comes to integrating technology in the landscape field.
It's so difficult to talk about technology today and not talk about AI. I mean, it's a very dominant subject when it comes to technology, but AI's been around for a long time. I mean, we're using it today, but I mean, how long ago was it that you used Siri? Siri was an AI platform, I guess, and so we've been using AI for many years. It's just that it's now more available to us. there are a lot of technologies that AI is supporting. It's not that AI is the tool. And so, Vasileios, what are some of the tools that you're seeing in use today, maybe different than what Omar's mentioned?
We have, we have all sorts of tools in our arsenal, from very early design stages, from sketching to concept design, image generation. We're using AI there. We use the standard, obviously, Autodesk design suite. We have a lot of proprietary custom-developed software to either enhance interoperability between platforms or create efficiencies in the way that we prepare, we design and we prepare the deliverables, the data that we're giving to the client. So it's, as I said, every tool for the task and the person, we have everything in our arsenal. Then we go to even, I don't know, harvest data for analytics in Power BI or Speckle and whatnot. So we have.
Now, the construction industry's been criticised quite some time ago about being a slow adopter of technology, right? I don't really agree with this comment, right? So I have a construction background. My father and grandfather had a construction company, and my father was a very quick adopter of technology. Our first fax machine was like, 2.5 feet by a meter. It was huge. It was called a Chubb fax by Canon, and it cost $5,000. We bought one. And before that, we had a computer, and we were quick to adopt technology, but those technologies were not always available. But as proven tech has become available, the construction industry's adopted, and I'm sure all of your practices have adopted. But what about you, Kerem? I know you come from a tech background. I interviewed Kerem a couple of months back, and he talked more about technology than he did himself. But was your company a quick adopter of these technologies, or how did you go about that adoption process?
Look, I think, the technology that we use today has been around for quite some time. I mean, we talk about AI and we talk about these new tools that are coming to the market all the time, but actually BIM has been around a very long time, and as architects we were actually quite slow adopters ourselves, where the engineers were already in advance of that, same with AutoCAD and various other things. So I think for me, the question isn't about adoption, it's about how you use it and when you use it. And as a business, when we entered the Chinese market 20 years ago, the pace that was being developed forced us to transition as a business into adopting methods that were much more streamlined and much quicker. And so we created our own common data environments where we could share across multiple studios, because the projects were such large scale, it couldn't be just done in one office, and we were working with multiple entities, whether they be governmental, semi-governmental or private. And so as a business, technology still forms a very key part of the broader group that we sit under, which is Sichung Limited. And there we have a business that established itself 20 years ago as purely a BIM resource, teaching other people, providing BIM services. But over time it has moved away from that into digital transformation, IoT, and now AI-based management of the full life cycle of a project. So something that we are committed to. Technology marches forward. If we don't march with it, we get left behind. How we allow the technology to assist us is, I think, the key, rather than just going along a route of just saying, we'll adopt this, adopt this, adopt this. We try to take a bit of time to look at the technology and say, which one works for us? What do we want to achieve as a business? What do our stakeholders need from us to deliver their work? And we fit the technology to that purpose.
Now, you mentioned there about BIM, and BIM's been around for quite some time. It depends who you talk to in the industry and at what stage of the construction process, whether they like BIM or they don't like BIM. You talk to the architect, it's okay. You had to adopt it and you design with it, but then the design of it forces the contractor to have BIM specialists, the subcontractors to have BIM specialists, and quite often they just, CAD is good enough for a facade company, right? And so, but they have to employ BIM. So if you ask them, you know, do you like BIM? They're not very supportive because they don't really need it, but they have to employ people to accommodate it, right? And so, but when it comes to BIM, Manuela, I know you're interested in this, but how has been the process of your company with the development of BIM?
Yes, well, in our experience, BIM has been like the star program in the last years. We have incorporated it absolutely in our design process because we work engineers, we do infrastructure, we do architecture, and we do landscape, and we need to design this in an integrated manner. So BIM is a tool that really helps us to speeden up workflow, to really integrate what each discipline is doing, and you have a real-time information of what your roads colleague is doing or the irrigation colleague is doing. So you have this information while you are developing the project. And I think also for the contractors and also for the industry, it is really useful because you find the clashes at the moment that you are designing and not at the moment you are constructing. So it really anticipates the problems that you would have had later on in the construction process, and it helps you solve these problems in the design process where it is much cheaper to solve.
Phil,
You mentioned there.
Can I just jump in a moment?
Yeah,
I'd
sure.
like to sort of go back to some of the points you were making, which is the smaller suppliers don't want to integrate with it or they don't want to adopt it. Well, I think that you have to cycle that back up the chain. Okay, the first question is why do you want to deliver a project in BIM? Other than the obvious things that we talk about and makes our life helpful and useful, why does a developer want to develop a BIM model? What's its long-term purpose? So otherwise you're investing a lot of money and a lot of time into a lot of data, which at the end of that process, when the project is built, what are you going to do with that data? So the question I ask, and I think also how we incentivize the industry to transform more rapidly, is that actually there needs to be more investment and a longer-term perspective by the people who are actually procuring our services. At the moment, there's a huge pressure on the industry to reduce prices. That doesn't make it easier for the end guy at the bottom of the chain who's just delivering a product to then integrate into BIM, because he's being squeezed and squeezed. I mean, everybody's being squeezed down the line. So I think as a marketplace in the Middle East, I think we need to take a longer-term perspective on value, the value that we invest, because the products that we as a team produce adds a huge amount of value to the projects, whether they be architecture in my case, landscape in public realm in other people's case, technology. I think there's a broader debate rather than just limiting it to is BIM useful, is why is it useful and what does it eventuate and how do we do that across a larger value chain. And that means that people at the top who commission the work need to pay for it.
I'd like to come back to that in a moment because what do we use that data for? And the amount of data that is being accumulated for the construction industry is incredible in this region. I mean, Oracle has just announced the investment of $40 billion in data storage in Saudi Arabia alone. I mean, that's a major investment. They see the need. But you mentioned earlier, Manuela, about integration of BIM and it's not. I understand that there are some issues relevant to BIM, you know, and there are different technologies, but there's also the discussion today about open BIM. I think it was, who did I ask? Omar, you were going to explain this. But can somebody explain to me, what is open, I hear this term open BIM. What is open BIM different from BIM?
Well, it's about breaking silos. It's about sharing and exchanging information beyond, irrespective of the software platform that you're using, right? Well, let's not forget that proprietary formats, they're governed by corporate interest. It's very important, it's to the public interest to have open standards so that it ensures interoperability between platforms, disciplines, and secondly, also long-term data preservation for authorities and whatnot, even beyond software formats that come and go. you have an open standard that you can rely upon, that it's outside of the corporate interest circle, right? And that can benefit the public immensely.
I know in Europe and here now in the region, there's organizations like Building Smart that are doing well to standardize, to open BIM standardification or standards that are being built. I guess it's like having different computer technologies or programs talking to each other. There's multiple programs within the BIM platform, different manufacturers. And so is this like developing a standard for same?
In some ways, like, let's think of it like USB-C. It's a standard that's been enforced, at least in Europe, to many private companies. So every phone that is sold in Europe, it has to have USB-C. So it removes like Apple's proprietary lightning cables, and so it unifies. It's a standard that's across privately held companies and devices, or in our case, software vendors that are either traditionally specific to some design disciplines, or so it gives you freedom. It frees up the data and communication on that.
Very good. Okay, so let's go back to your discussion, because we are collecting all this data. We're designing and building, but does this data that we have, that we sort of created within the build and the design, have value after the construction process, Kerem?
Of course. I mean, all data is valuable in the sense that it has value beyond just the process of construction. It's about the management of the facilities management of the project beyond that. It's also about the asset management in terms of how you potentially go IPO on a business package if you have multiple assets. That's where the digital transformation piece comes in. How we actually begin to manage our environment and the harm or good that we do to it should be harnessed through the data that we have. I mean, it's still disappointing to see large-scale master plans in this region that show swathes of green grass that is not native to this region, still, being used on marketing tools. Whereas if we're using our technology, we should be testing that and asking ourselves, how much water will that do, as opposed to using a different methodology. So there are all sorts of ways we can manipulate that data. We can analyze all the consumption of power, water, et cetera, through the tools that we've created and spent a lot of time and money putting together, rather than it being sitting dead. I mean, there's directives in the UAE where when you're working for government projects, they all need to be done in BIM. But what is being done with that data? How are we going to collect that data? It's just sitting, as you say, in these huge data farms, using huge amounts of power. As we know, data farms consume vast amounts of energy. How are we going to actually do that? We've got to use something with that data. We've got to create something out of it, a benefit. So I think ultimately creating common data environments where we can share that data across multiple assets. I mean, we have multiple developers in the region. Otherwise, we have islands that may benefit one developer if they even eventuate it that far. But what happens when we can actually collectivize all of that information and have a nationwide approach, which is where this should be going. It's logical and it's achievable if there is an incentive to push people to do it. And I think that's the issue. For me, it's we don't want to limit commerciality. We don't want to limit the ability to make money, but we also want to make sure that people are getting on board, and that has to come through legislation. And I think one of the things that we really are challenged by in this region is that lack of legislation that enforces. I mean, I think Abu Dhabi is better than the other parts of the Emirates, but I think there's still a long way to go to really legislate for improvement.
I understand that there's another application where the data associated to BIM is being used with the development of digital twin. So Manuela, you had a great project that you were involved with. Can you share some of that story?
Yes, that's it. I think all this data that we collect and that we use and manage in BIM or in other softwares can be further used in this digital twin. So now it's like a new era, no, for BIM management and for the management of the infrastructure, the landscapes, the buildings. through these digital twins with which we collect data and we can project different scenarios to know how different uses of plants, for example, use of water, how they can work. In Abu Dhabi, I know that there is a company working in AI to restore mangroves, for example, which is a very, very important and interesting ecosystem. No? And if you add this AI, these drones that can read the mangrove landscape and do very, very specific interventions so that the restoration is optimum. If you add a digital twin to this, if you can project different scenarios to this, then the potential is huge, no? Because we can really act in those places where the result is going to be optimum. And we can really study how much water we need, how much water we can save, where it is important to use more or less water, and how the mangrove, in this case, for example, can grow and maintain, no? And maintain its importance as an ecosystem.
I guess we're presuming that everyone knows what digital twin means, but I think in short, it's a digital version of a development, and we use this to analyze sustainability and growth and usage.
We can use it for buildings, we can use it for infrastructure. In fact, it's like its name, no? It's a digital twin, so it's something that is exactly the same as a city, for example. It's a city built in the cloud, no? And with this city or this mangrove or this building built in the cloud, we can handle it and give it data so that we obtain the results that we would obtain in the real world.
Now, the cost of technology needs to have some return of investment in business. When I bought my first mobile phone, I had an immediate return on investment. I didn't have to stop at the payphone to make phone calls. I could be on time. I could keep in contact with my customers. There's not too many people alive today who remember what it's like to be in business without a mobile phone. I was one of them because I'm old enough. But and pagers, they were even worse than not having a pager. But when it comes to technology, we spend a lot of money in business on tech. Are you seeing a return on investment today? Omar, you have a comment here?
Well, in the beginning, I think there will be a cost in adapting the technology, because if you want to adapt a new technology, this will involve some sort of training. And with the training, you need to spend money, either on your team to train them on these new tools, or experiment more than one technology or more than one software. For our case, for instance, we have been exploring different AI tools, and with these AI tools comes a cost with each, whether it's a subscription cost or the time that you are investing to learn it and then teach it to your team. So in a way to do a return of investment, you need to build a case. So the simplest case that we're currently seeing is all these image generation, because everyone knows that to reach to some sort of a hyper-realistic render means a lot of time and a lot of cost when you approach these CGI companies. But now with all these platforms that are enabling you to create these realistic CGIs, there is a return on investment. So instead of paying, let's say, $2,000, $3,000 for a render for a certain company and wait a couple of weeks to receive it, you can now generate it within minutes and create endless iterations with a subscription that would cost you $100 a month. So, and if you speak about return of investment, I think that this is a valid example. Now you're reducing time, you're reducing cost, and all this hustle communicating with these all rendering agencies to get these renders. And that's like one of the examples in terms of image generation. But if we're talking about, let's say, design iterations, now instead of spending also weeks doing the modeling, the exercise, developing the concept, and so on, now you can actually build more than one scenario within the same context, within the same, let's say, basic building structure, and get multiple data with a very short time. So all of that, in the beginning, I know that it will cost you a little bit just to find your way, find your right tool, find your right workflow as well, in order to get to the end result. But at the end of the day, you are reducing a lot of time and a lot of cost on the long run. So I think you are having a good return of investment adopting these technologies.
And so you mentioned about AI, and I love AI. I'm so in tune with some of the recent developments. I'm involved with marketing, and I use AI all the time. Maybe you don't realize, but our entire awards system this year was built within ChatGPT, an engine of ChatGPT. All of the questions, the analysis, the scenarios, everything was built with ChatGPT. It's fantastic. I can go back to my model today and ask any question about our awards. I'll get a clear answer. But ChatGPT still has some problems. The other day I asked for something and I got, some rubbish back in 2024. And we're still not quite there yet, when it comes to AI. But what are some of the practices that you're seeing best use for AI in your business today? We'll start with Vasileios.
Yes. So the best use cases, we're trying to move away, move away from general large language models and have those grounded, is the term, to our data, right? So that we get the right answer, and we essentially, don't start every project or every document or every design on a blank slate, but we use our information, the data that we have generated in the past. So we're harvesting that data and then grounding large language models on that, so you can have pinpointed responses, whether that's text generation or whether that's image generation. We're trying to have very, very specific and pinpointed results from those, and that's really the exciting part from my side.
Kerem, are you pro AI or got some reservations, or are you?
No reservations. I mean, I think it's not a magic bullet. You get out. Sorry, it's not a magic bullet. You get out as much of it as you put in. With all technology, it's not just about pressing a button and getting a result. It's about achieving what you want to achieve. We use it across all platforms of the business, not just in architecture and design, but we use it across our marketing suites, our business development suites, finance, everything. And as you say, it's about being targeted. But at the same time, where we're sort of challenging ourselves is how, whilst we get that sort of grounded data, how do we also give space for nuance? And how we create something that's more bespoke for specific types of projects. So where we're looking at is how we finesse that grounding into, I guess, a more nuanced, a more design-responsive set of languages and approaches.
Well, we have a few minutes left. I would like all of you to answer this question. We'll start with Omar and Manuela. What excites you most about some future tech? Are there any technologies that you're seeing that are in the development or that you're working with now that you think will bring greater value, greater efficiency to your business, greater return on investment? Are there any interesting techs that you've been looking at today?
I think what interests me the most is now you can actually build something without the need to have a whole team of coders and all of that. You will just encounter, let's say, an obstacle, and then think how I can make this task, which is taking a lot of time and it's very repetitive and efficient and fast moving task. And with all these technologies, all these AI platforms that we are getting with these models, I can now, without having all that coding knowledge, actually build something from scratch. So having that power will actually change how we look at our current workflows. So you can just, whenever you face something, whenever you face an obstacle at work, whenever you face a task that's taking a lot of your time, you can simply go and find a solution and create a whole new tool within, let's say, a day or two, and just put it out there within your team and just take the whole workflow to a whole new different level.
I think in our workflow, we always have problems and we just swept them away. But now we have the opportunity to find the solution for that problem. And a lot of the construction techs that we have today in safety and development and site optimization and progress, these are there to support the construction industry. Manuela, any interesting tech that you see on the horizon?
I think AI is going to help us in two ways, no? Well, it's going to help us in many different ways, but I'm thinking of two. On one hand, it is really going to speed up our work, and it is going to enable one single professional to be able to manage a whole different set of tools. I mean, right now, some professionals can do coding, other professionals can generate images, other professionals can do the concept design, but with these AI tools and learning the proper language, one professional is going to be able to do the coding and the image generation and the concept design at once. No? So it's going really to give us, we're going to have an enormous amount of tools in our hand. And I think this is very, very powerful. And on the other hand, I think all this digital twin industry or development, as we said before, is going to really help us in decision making. So we're going to be able to make decisions based on really scientific data and real inputs that maybe nowadays we have to base on our own experience and on sometimes guessing based on our experience. But this digital twin development is going to give us a very powerful tool for making decisions, for decision making.
Okay, we're running out of time. 20 seconds, any interesting techs that you're seeing?
Well, 20 seconds. I would be, we are engaged in spatial design, like in architecture and landscape architecture, we're designing space. And designing space is not only, it's a distinctly human practice. It's not only about logic, it's also about intuition, it's also about experience. So I'd be very interested to see AI having spatial awareness, right? Not necessarily possessing a body, but being aware of space and the outcome of that, what we would have if AI can have an experience of space, which is largely what's driving humans to design space, understand and design space. So that's really exciting for me.
Well, it's very difficult to ask Kerem to only talk for 20 seconds, but we'll give it a shot. Kerem, 20 seconds, any future tech that you see?
You know what, I'm going to keep it very simple. I tend to agree with a lot of what everybody else is saying. The only thing I would say is that I would love to see the technology going further up the chain into the development components so that we get really solid outputs in terms of briefs that are smart, contextual, and relevant to this region and what we do in the Middle East.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for your time. It's great to get a panel of architects. Normally I meet you in your office or something in my career. I've always met with architects, but it's nice that you could join us. Thank you so much for your time. AtkinsRéalis, LWKP, and U+A, and IDOM, all the way. You're based in Spain?
I am based in Madrid, Spain.
In Madrid. Yes. Maybe we should have the next Middle East in Madrid. That would be...
You are really, really welcome, yes.
Okay.
I would be
Ladies
very
and gentlemen, please thank our panel today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.